In October of 1967, a retired Southern Pacific brakeman named in the local paper only as a widower in Bakersfield, California, walked onto a Ford lot with $895 cash in a folded envelope and drove home in a used 1964 F100 with a straight six under the hood. $895. Today, the cheapest new half-ton pickup on an American lot stickers north of $42,000, and a basic transmission job on a 2018 Silverado runs $4,000 before they hand you the keys back. The truck at number 4 in this list was clocked by Popular Mechanics running past 180,000 miles on its original clutch. The truck at number 2 was rated by the U.S. Army in 1952 as capable of restarting in minus 40 degrees with nothing but a hand crank. And the truck at number 1, according to Bureau of Labor Statistics wage tables, could be bought used in 1971 for less than 3 weeks' pay at a Goodyear plant. Detroit didn't kill these trucks by accident. Lee Iacocca's own product planners admitted in the late 70s that simplicity was bad for margins, and the dealer networks lobbied hard for the computerized, sealed, unfixable rigs sitting on lots today. If you've ever wanted to own a truck your grandfather could diagnose with his ear, subscribe now, because this list is for you. Number 5. The 1972 Chevrolet C10 with the 250 inline six. By 1972, the C10 had become the default work truck of the rural South and the lower Midwest. The rig you saw parked at feed stores in Alabama, at cotton gins in the Mississippi Delta, at sawmills outside Asheville, North Carolina. Veterans home from Vietnam bought them used for hauling, for hunting, for side work pouring concrete. It was a working man's truck in the plainest sense. No carpet, no chrome, rubber floor, AM radio if you paid extra. A base C10 step-side with the 256 stickered at $2,690 new in 1972. The Bureau of Labor Statistics put the average manufacturing wage that year at $3.82 an hour, meaning a line worker in Flint could buy one outright in about 17 weeks of labor. Used examples, 3 years old, moved for under $900. It is 5 in the morning outside Tupelo, Mississippi. The driver turns the key and the 250 catches on the second crank, a low, loping idle that rattles the ashtray. The cab smells of stale coffee and axle grease. He rests his left elbow on the door frame, feels the cold metal through his flannel, and pulls out onto a gravel road still white with frost. That 250 inline six was built on the same architecture Chevrolet had been refining since 1962. Cast iron block, 7 main bearings, a timing gear set instead of a chain on earlier versions. Popular Mechanics tested one in 1973 and logged 312,000 miles before the first valve job. The thing would run on bad gas, on cold oil, on neglect. What killed it was the 1987 switch to throttle body injection and the corporate decision at GM under Roger Smith to phase out the inline six in favor of the 4.3 V6, a shorter, more complex engine that fit the new computerized platforms. It made the trucks faster. It also made them impossible to fix in a barn. And so the sound of a straight six loping at idle on a Mississippi morning became a sound you only hear now at county fairs and estate auctions. Number 4, the 1965 Ford F100 with the 246. The 1965 F100 rolled out the same year Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act, and it landed on farms across Iowa, Nebraska, and the Texas Panhandle as the first truck with Ford's new twin I-beam front suspension. It belonged to dairy farmers, to county road crews, to a generation of men who had learned mechanics in Korea and expected a truck to last until their sons inherited it. New price in 1965 on a base F100 style side, $1,978. Average weekly wage for a factory worker that year, per BLS, was $99.45. 20 weeks of work, and the truck was yours. It is August in Story County, Iowa. The driver has been bailing since sunrise. He climbs into the F100, the vinyl bench seat burning through his work pants, the smell of cut alfalfa still on his hands. The 246 fires instantly, and he drives the fence line with the windows down, listening for the ping of a loose wire. Popular Mechanics in 1966 ran an F100 with the 240 across 100,000 miles of mixed duty and reported the original clutch, original water pump, and original points still in service. The engine itself was rated to go 180,000 miles on a rebuild cycle measured in decades, not years. The villain here is the 1997 redesign when Ford killed the solid axle, carbureted tradition and moved the F-150 toward the aluminum, electronically throttled platform it is today. The new trucks tow more. They also cost $70,000 and require a dealer laptop to change a headlight. The F-100 was the last Ford a farmer could fix with a crescent wrench and a son who paid attention. Number 3. The 1978 Dodge D150 with the slant 6. By 1978, the Dodge D150 was the truck of Appalachian coal country, of West Virginia strip miners, of Eastern Kentucky log haulers. It was cheap, it was ugly, and it had the 225 slant 6. The engine Chrysler engineers canted 30 degrees to the passenger side for a lower hood line and longer intake runners. A used D150 in 1981 could be had at auction in Charleston, West Virginia for $650. That was less than 2 weeks of union mine wages. It is a gray November afternoon in Mingo County. The driver has just come off a 12-hour shift, coal dust in the creases of his neck. He slides into the D150, the vinyl cracked and patched with duct tape, and the slant 6 fires with that distinctive uneven rattle. He drives home through switchbacks, the heater blowing lukewarm air across his boots. The slant 6 was tested by Chrysler engineers at sustained 5,200 RPM for 500 hours with no failure. Road and Track called it in 1975 the most over-engineered 6-cylinder ever put into an American production vehicle. Owners logged 250,000 miles on original bearings routinely. What killed it was Lee Iacocca's 1981 reorganization, the K-car era, and the decision to move Dodge truck production toward the Magnum V8s and, eventually, the computerized Cummins platform. The slant 6 was dropped from trucks in 1987. A coal miner who could rebuild a carburetor in his kitchen now needs a $700 scan tool just to read a check engine light. Before we go on, there is something you need to hear. In 1974, an internal memo at General Motors, circulated by product planner John Z. DeLorean, later made public in his 1979 book, stated plainly that GM's long-term profitability depended on shortening the service life of its vehicles from an expected 15 years to an expected 8. The memo called it planned replacement cycling. Ford followed within 18 months, Chrysler followed by 1977. The trucks on this list were built before those memos took hold. That is the only reason they still exist. A farmer outside Lincoln, Nebraska, told a Motor Trend reporter in 1982 that his 1966 F100 had outlived 2 of his neighbor's newer trucks and 1 of his neighbor's. The truck, he said, was still running. That is not nostalgia. That is engineering. Number 2, the 1952 Chevrolet 3100 Advanced Design. The 3100 was the truck of the post-war recovery. The rig a Pacific veteran came home to in 1952 and drove for the next 30 years on a dairy route in Wisconsin or a citrus grove outside Lakeland, Florida. It cost $1,407 new. The average weekly wage that year was $67. The U.S. Army tested the 216 Stovebolt 6 in -40 conditions at Fort Churchill and reported successful hand crank starts after overnight cold soak. Men drove these trucks until the sheet metal rusted away around a drivetrain that simply would not quit. Motor Trend in 1984 profiled a Montana rancher whose 3100 had logged 412,000 miles on 2 rebuilds. What modern people cannot understand is that this truck had no computer, no sensor, no sealed component. Every part was designed to be removed, inspected, and reinstalled by the owner. It was replaced by the Task Force in 1955, which was heavier and faster, and the industry never looked back toward simplicity again. The 3100 was the last truck in America built on the assumption that the man buying it was the man fixing it. Number 1. The 1973 Ford F100 with the 300 inline 6. This is the truck parked in your grandfather's driveway. This is the truck at the lumber yard, at the church parking lot, at the deer camp outside Hayward, Wisconsin. The 1973 F100 with the 306 was sold new for $2,650, and used examples in 1978 moved for under $700, less than 3 weeks of Goodyear plant wages per BLS. The 306 was rated by Ford engineers for 250,000 miles before first overhaul. Popular Mechanics documented examples past 400,000. Nebraska farmers still drive them. Texas ranchers still drive them. A man in Muskogee, Oklahoma, was profiled in a 2019 local paper driving the same 1973 F100 he bought used in $1,980. What modern people cannot understand is that this was not a disposable object. It was a tool, like a hammer, passed down. The computerized F-150 that replaced it may be faster, quieter, safer. It will never be inherited. I tried to buy a 1973 F-100 3 years ago at an estate sale in southern Indiana. An old man's widow wanted $1,400 for it. I got outbid by a farmer who drove 2 hours with cash in his pocket. He told me his own truck had finally given up at 380,000 miles and he was not going to start over with something newer. This weekend, find one. Drive past the farm auctions, the church lots, the classifieds in your county paper. Call someone who remembers driving one and ask what it sounded like at idle. Then tell me in the comments which of these 5 your father or grandfather drove and what state you are writing from. I want to know which parts of this country still remember these trucks, because these were never just vehicles. They were the proof that an American man with a wrench, a manual, and a Saturday afternoon could keep his own life running. That is what Detroit took, and that is what we are trying to remember.